More yoga, less problems, yeah.
Hi, I'm Jazz from Mo Yoga Less Problems, the yoga podcast in Portland. We're live at Yoga Fest PDX today, and right now I'm sitting with Yoga Riot. Hi guys.
Hi, how are you?
Good. All right, so why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Tell me who you are and why you started Yoga Riot.
Cool. I'm Annie Ory. I'm the original founder of Yoga Riot and moved to Portland to start the studio.
Where'd you move from?
LA.
Oh, cool.
And I moved here because the opportunity presented itself and there was a space available for me here to make the studio that I wanted to go to. A studio where people push to the edge, where we are given an opportunity to expand our practice in ways that grow us individually as people, and to create a space that was thriving and exciting and connected. And I opened a Baptiste-inspired studio because I'm a Baptiste-trained teacher. And I love the philosophy that Baptiste gives to us as teachers, which is that teachers should be at cause for leadership in our communities. And so our community is growing in leadership, and that's what we wanted to do. Carys joined me just this year. She trained with me as a teacher trainee. She's a Baptiste-trained teacher as well.
I walked into Annie's studio about a month after she opened, and I'll be honest, I hated yoga. I had a lot of bad yoga experiences that made me think like, oh God, not another one. So I had a friend who was taking Annie's teacher training at the time, and she's like, I'm teaching my first community class, you should come. And I was like, okay, I'm a good friend, I'll come. So I did, and I showed up with the same attitude that I show up at every yoga class. I might walk out 5 minutes in. That was my general attitude at the time. So I put my mat down, I get into the practice, and by the time it was over, I was like, what was that? Like, what just happened? And I something inside of me was moved in a way that I'd never felt before. And so I was like, I want to work here. Can I be a Karmi, which is our Karma Yoga program? It's our work trade program, our internship. And they were like, yeah, of course, you know. So I started just working 2 hours a week, folding towels and, filling water. And then before I knew it, my practice expanded in a way that it was all so unexpected. It was never anything I wanted, you know. But it was bigger than that. It was bigger than wanting it. It was just, it was moving. And so, I started working there. And then before I knew it, taking on more responsibilities. And then it was like, well, when are you going to take teacher training? And I was like, why would anybody do that? I don't want to be a yoga teacher. But then I realized it would be the next step in my practice. So I was like, okay, I could do that. And so I went into it again, not wanting to teach yoga, not wanting really anything to do with it yet. And then again, what I have learned about my yoga practice and my life is that the more resistance I show towards a thing, the more that thing is probably the thing I need to be going into. So that's how teacher training was. Before I knew it, I was teaching yoga, and I just never saw it. And then one day, it felt like one day where Annie was like, maybe it's time for you to quit your job and come on full time. And I was like,
Using
no.
the yoga power
At first I was like, no, I don't know about that. And then I went to a teacher training. I went to the Baptiste level 1 teacher training, and they promise you a breakthrough. They're like, you will have a breakthrough this week. And I was like, okay, well, what's my breakthrough going to be? And I quit my job and came home and became a co-owner. Well, it was only a week long. It's an intensive. It's 100 hours in a week. So they really get you in that week. A lot happens in that week. So I came back from that training, and I was like, let's do this. So I quit my day job, and I went on full time with Annie, and so I've been with her since the beginning, but in different ways. Yeah. So.
Well, can you guys explain what Baptiste yoga is? Because I don't really know much about it myself.
Baptiste yoga is power yoga, vinyasa, done usually in a heated space. And it's intended to push students to their personal edge.
Okay.
Physically and mentally. Okay. To ask you to step forward into your practice in a way that you might not have imagined was possible before. And lest it sound like it's not, I should say it's also a very joyful and playful kind of yoga. It's not about hurting yourself, pushing yourself.
Yeah.
It's about playing with where the edge is.
Yeah, it's more like observing yourself in the act of practice and then seeing the difference over time, I would imagine, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
Yeah,
taking
that
a
was
less
my
serious
experience. I mean,
approach
I
to
walked
it.
into yoga with very little, awareness of what I was doing, and I just got better because I just kept coming, And
Yeah.
so like the more you show up, the more happens. And it's mechanically, Baptiste yoga was created by Baptiste. He's the master teacher of the sequence of the method that we do. He created a sequence called the Journey into Power, which is a series of 53 poses. And that's kind of like our guideline. That's our blueprint. Most of the classes you'll experience at our studio follow that rhythm.
General structure.
Yeah. Okay. And so how might you kind of improvise with that structure?
There's a lot of places to play in Baptiste yoga. I've taken many classes from master Baptiste teachers, and I've never taken the same class twice.
Oh.
So it's different in that way from, say, the Bikram system, which is the exact same poses. Like, there is a list of poses, and there are other poses that stand in for, say, eagle pose or, tree or something like that. You can play with it with your own. The opening series is about opening your hips. So here are these suggested hip openers. What else opens your hips?
Oh, okay.
It's a well-rounded blueprint.
Yeah.
It's a sound structure, and we play within that structure. So maybe it's just like the where the poses come in, or what am I trying to say? Like they're variations. Like we could play with the variations. Of it.
So the focus is like the intention of the pose, right?
Yeah.
Like what you're trying to get through the pose, and then there are different poses that you can actually use to get to that.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And I think more than anything else, one thing that people are sometimes surprised about when they come to a Baptiste studio is we don't generally play a lot of music. And if we do, it's kept quite quiet during the practice. And
I love that.
It's our intention that our students can hear themselves breathe.
Yes, I don't teach to music at all because it
we also don't
distracts
have mirrors, which is, you see a lot of studios with mirrors. That's another thing we don't have.
Yeah. I found that really helpful. The first time I went to a studio without a mirror, I was like, but now I can't see what I'm doing. And then that forced me to go inward and kind of feel what the pose was supposed to feel like.
Right.
Rather than...
It's the fourth superpower of yoga. Balance, strength, flexibility. And the last one is our super secret, proprioception. Like where's
Where
your
you are in
body
space.
and how do you make it do what you want to do? Yeah. So, and no mirrors. Feel where your leg is.
Yeah. Well, I think that also helps us not be distracted by comparing ourselves to other people in the class, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was conditioned to look in a mirror and start picking myself apart. So while I understand the purpose of the mirror in yoga, I am not evolved yet at the point where I can look into a mirror and not have that discussion with myself. So that's an ongoing, thing. But I find sometimes mirrors distracting for myself.
I also will say, and this is another thing people are often surprised by, Baptiste is a super touchy yoga.
What do you mean by that?
We touch our students.
Okay.
We do not model poses in the front of the room. We walk around the room and help people understand where their body is.
Okay. So you're guiding them.
Yes, help them to see where their knee might be able to go. Step a back foot forward to shorten the stance so you can stack the joint, like things like that, so that they don't have to figure it all out on their own. Like that's what I think the teacher's for.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you guys brought like a whole crew with you guys today.
We did.
I know, we can't see them on camera, but I would love to hear from them. So I would love for you guys to introduce yourselves.
I'm Presley. I teach at Yoga Riot, and
And that's it.
Good. And she's amazing and teaches our Empower class on Sundays, which I refer to it as the class if you need a modification, Katie has one.
That's true.
So important.
Oh, yeah. And I'm Stone Cairns, and I'm a yoga teacher at Yoga Riot, and I also lead the meditation program.
Oh, cool. All right, so I want you guys to tell me more about these classes. What is Empower all about?
Empower Yoga was a class that I've always wanted to teach because I used to live a really active lifestyle. I would do Bikram yoga 6 days a week, ride my bike like 15 miles a day, and I ended up with some a couple of surfing accidents, fell off a motorcycle, broke both ankles, not at the same time.
You were fearless.
Yes, well, I had a great life. Back then in my 20s when my body was more resilient. And then I ended up with a lot of fascia injuries where things were just so tight and they became immobile. So I realized that I had to come to a place where I needed to slow down and take different types of modifications. Like, for example, everybody says, oh, child's pose, come to child's pose, you'll feel amazing. No, that feels terrible. So what can we do instead of child's pose? What is a way to assist your body and learn to listen to it so that you don't, yes, we always say go to your edge, but maybe your edge is backing off and allowing your body to heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's a really good way to say that, because I'm also before I came out to Portland, I used to be an attorney, and from the East Coast, right? So it was like a double whammy, and you know, I have like a type A personality, and so it'd always be like pushing myself and getting hurt over and over again. And it's only when, you know, I found teachers that really encouraged me to like back out of a pose a little bit and take it step by step that those injuries started to heal. True. Yeah. So Stone, you teach meditation.
I do.
Tell me about that.
Well, we have, technically we have a meditation and inquiry program at Yoga Riot. And so I teach meditation 4 times a week. And it's a class without pretension. Like, we try to make it as welcoming and as sort of practical as possible. And so we welcome people from all kinds of backgrounds and all kinds of experiences with meditation, and we just meet them where they are. We find a comfortable way to sit, and then each week we play, you know, with different forms of meditation, mindfulness, metta meditation, different breathing techniques. Sometimes we just troubleshoot, like where are people meeting challenges in their practice, or what's the next step to establish a more daily practice?
How long is your class?
Just an hour.
Just an hour of meditation?
Just an hour. So we come in and we meditate, and then we usually have some discussion. We check in where people are.
Oh, okay.
And then sometimes there's an exercise that I'll guide or that we'll set up. And then we sit. And depending on the experience in the room in a given class, we might sit for a longer period, or we might just do some shorter sits, you know. And I like to say, if you're a beginner, if you have a beginner's mind, there's always something to pick up in the class.
Yeah.
And we make sure not to create too, not to be wed to anyone's spiritual tradition, because they overlap a lot. And I think there's a lot of value in finding the commonalities where different cultures and different histories have like come to the same conclusions about how to sit still and be with oneself and be in the present moment. And so that's where we bring most of our focus, is just to the present moment.
That's great, because part of it is like, take what works for you, leave the rest. And the other part is like, there are many paths to get to the same destination, right? I really like that from learning from each of them then too. And
I like to bring a good amount of variety, because especially people just beginning a formal meditation practice, just like when you're trying to find the yoga that's right for you, like to find out what's going to work for me. Am I better off with like a walking meditation, or am I better off chanting to give myself some place to focus, you know, or can I learn to just still and be with my breath, and like, how do those things relate to my yoga practice, to my outside life, you know, so there's lots of places to plug in.
I like that. How do you teach it every day?
I teach Mondays and Wednesdays at 7 in the evening, and then Tuesdays and Thursday mornings at 11.
Oh, okay.
And those classes are timed so that you can easily pair it with a yoga class at the studio.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of students that will do that. We'll meditate and then go right into yoga, or we'll come out of savasana and then walk right into the meditation room, which is my favorite.
Yeah, that would seem to really lend itself to like quieting the mind, getting all of your energy out, going through your practice first.
Yes. Particularly because we teach such an active form of yoga, the ability to come to stillness is really valuable. But sometimes a place where people, you wouldn't think like sitting still is going to be the hard part, but often it is.
It is.
And so
you're always fidgeting and like scratching something or like adjusting. So for students that are new to yoga and find it very inaccessible, like because they have maybe movement limitations, or want to try meditation and have it, what would be your piece of advice respectively for both of those?
show up.
Just come.
I mean,
go to
honestly,
class.
like, you could make a lot of complicated, like, whatever, but mostly just show up and be willing.
Mm-hmm.
Just be willing to be present. And when I first started at Yoga Riot, I have a disability, and I was in terrible physical shape when I got there. And sometimes my whole practice was to do like the little bit I could and then sit quietly until my heart rate settled. And then I'd be like, okay, we're going to try again.
Yeah.
You know, but just continuing to show up.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Can I add to that as well? I'm definitely the type of person that would ask questions.
Yeah.
I broke my toe in teacher training, which is a big bummer.
Yeah.
But instead of showing up and like feeling bad and never talking about it, I asked a ton of questions and came to the conclusion that if I stood on blocks with my toes draped over the blocks, I could achieve everything that was happening. But I would never have known such a thing if I didn't ask several people.
Yeah.
So if you're that type of person that's more outgoing and needs tons of data, I would definitely encourage the student to ask different types of teachers. This is hard. What do I do? Well, don't do that, maybe. Or
stop.
yeah. Or, skip a vinyasa. Nobody's going to lord over you and say, the yoga gods are mad because you didn't do this pose.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. And
really
I
good
tell
advice.
people in meditation, they're like, oh, well, I start thinking about stuff. And I said, of course you do.
You're human.
Like, this is it. I'm so glad your brain is working. I'm like, And, so you can, and always ask for a different approach. You know, like if you're not getting something or something just doesn't sit right with you, you're like, she said visualize this and that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Then that's fine. Just, ask a question and there's another way to do it. There's another way to get there.
That's excellent advice. Thank you. Hey guys.
Hello.
Are you recent grads or are you in training now?
Yeah, like a week ago.
Yes.
We
A
graduated.
week ago.
Yeah.
What are your names?
I'm Taylor.
Michael.
Nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you. Tell me what your teacher training program was like. That's it. Yep, exactly.
It was intense.
Yeah.
It was 600. It was 6 months and 300 hours, going twice a week, doing lots of personal inventory and self-exploration, along with learning how to cue the breath, cue the pose, cue the transition, but a lot of self-exploration. So,
And was this your first teacher training?
Yeah.
Okay. This is like the entry point. Is this your first teacher training?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
This is the first time I've done yoga like consistently ever. I came to Yoga Riot wanting to be a teacher so I could start my yoga practice. So I worked as a Karmi for about a month and just dove right in. So the last 7 months has been like it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Wow.
it's been a really intense 7 months with the teacher training.
Yeah.
And so tell me, like, what did you expect going in? How did you envision this whole process to go when you signed up, the moment you signed up? And now, just having graduated, how is it different from what you envisioned?
Completely different. I mean, I kind of expected, I was like, cool, I'm going to know how to do the poses in the right order. Boom, done. It was nothing like, I mean, we learned the sequence, but it's such a deeper look at yourself and your practice and learning anatomy and learning modifications and learning social cues even, like how to interact with your students and your teachers and how to move through the space and how to use your voice. And just, it was so far and above and beyond anything I expected. I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to do it.
Good.
Yeah.
What about you?
Kind of the same, where I went into it thinking I want to deepen my yoga practice, and learning how to teach would be a way of deepening the practice. Not knowing whether or not I was actually going to teach at the end of it, but just thinking, no, this would be good. This would be good for me. And then hitting the ends and thinking, no, this is just more yoga. It's another form of yoga where you're pushing your edge. And you're challenging your notions of yourself, and you're trying to step into something that might create fear.
Yeah.
And drop the story, and be a yes.
Yeah, show up.
Be a yes.
Yes.
So what do you think now? Do you want to teach?
Yeah. Yes. I'm
That
teaching.
changed for you?
Yes. I'm teaching. Yes.
Am
Yeah,
We are
she's a great
teaching.
teacher.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
are you teaching at Yoga Riot?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
What classes?
I'm there Sundays at 3 p.m. and then I'll be rotating with another teacher trainee Wednesdays at 4.
Is it a regular vinyasa class or is it hatha or?
Yeah.
It's the Journey into Power series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what advice would you have for people that are considering teacher training, like in terms of how to figure out which program is right for them?
Go to the studio first, take some classes, get to know the community, the kinds of options that they'll be guiding you through. And if it's a good fit for you, then talk to them about teacher training and, just see if it's going to be, you're going to be spending so much time with those people and doing that style of yoga that, it's good to make sure it's a good fit. Yeah. That's my advice.
Ditto.
It's
Literally.
it's a big time and emotional and like physical commitment. So worth it. It's such a beautiful experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. It's still going.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us and being willing to share your journey, being fresh grads. And thank you guys so much for watching.
More yoga, less problems, yeah.